Money has a way of exposing people's true nature. I learned this the hard way when I found the receipt for a diamond bracelet I never received, tucked between our joint bank statements like a love letter gone wrong. I'm Violet, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. The paper trembled in my hands as I stared at the transaction details. $3,000 at Cartier, dated 3 weeks ago, right around our second anniversary. The purchase showed up clear as day on our shared account, but the only jewelry I'd received was a pair of cubic zirconia earrings from the mall. Working late again? I texted Ben, keeping my tone casual despite the acid churning in my stomach. Big client shoot. Don't wait up, came his swift reply. I pulled up our account history on my laptop, my marketing expertise kicking in as I searched for patterns. There they were. Scattered withdrawals, ranging from hundreds to thousands, all carefully timed to fly under my radar. How had I missed this? My phone buzzed. Lindsay from work. Drinks tonight? That startup pitch is killing me. Rain check. Something came up. I couldn't face anyone right now, not with this storm brewing inside me. The front door clicked open downstairs. I quickly shoved the statements back into their envelope, my heart hammering against my ribs. Ben's footsteps echoed through our townhouse, accompanied by the familiar thud of his camera bag hitting the floor. Honey? His voice carried upstairs, warm and rich like honey over broken glass. You wouldn't believe the sunset I caught today. I forced myself to breathe normally, tucking the envelope into my desk drawer. In the office, I called back, proud of how steady my voice sounded. He appeared in the doorway, all tousled dark hair and easy smile. That same smile that had won me over at the coffee shop 2 years ago, when he'd pretended to accidentally take my latte instead of his own. You're home early, he said, leaning against the doorframe. A faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clung to his jacket. Just wrapping up some work emails. I gestured at my laptop, where I'd pulled up a random spreadsheet. How was the shoot? Exhausting. Rich clients are the worst. He ran a hand through his hair, always wanting just one more shot. I nodded, watching him closely. Must be good money, though. Decent. He shrugged. But you're the real breadwinner in this family. My throat tightened at his casual deflection. Speaking of money, I was thinking of reviewing our budget. Maybe we could go through the accounts together this weekend? Something flickered behind his eyes, so brief I might have imagined it. This weekend's tough. I've got that wedding shoot in Vermont, remember? Right. The Vermont wedding. I'd forgotten about that convenient out-of-town job. Another rich client? Very. He crossed the room and kissed my forehead. Don't worry about the accounts, babe. I've got it covered. As he headed to the shower, I opened my drawer and touched the envelope containing his lies. The diamond bracelet was just the beginning. I could feel it in my bones. Somewhere in this city, someone was wearing my anniversary gift, probably thinking they were special, chosen, loved. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Time to dig deeper. Hey, Vi, Ben called from the hallway. Want to order in tonight? I'm thinking that new Thai place. Sure, I replied, already scanning through months of transaction histories. Whatever you want. And that's when I saw it. Regular payments to a storage unit across town. A storage unit I never knew existed. Ben started humming in the shower, the sound drifting through the walls like a mockery of domestic bliss. I saved the storage unit's address to my phone and closed the app. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd find out exactly what my husband was hiding. The storage unit's padlock stared back at me like a dare. I'd called in sick to work, something I'd never done before, but desperation makes liars of us all. The key I'd found hidden in Ben's camera bag felt heavy in my palm. 3 tries before the lock clicked open. Inside, cardboard boxes lined the walls, each labeled with Ben's precise handwriting. Wedding, Martinez. Portrait session, Chen family. Personal projects. Nothing suspicious at first glance, just the organized chaos of a professional photographer's archive. My phone buzzed. Lindsay. Everything okay? The pitch meeting was brutal without you. I ignored it, moving deeper into the unit. That's when I spotted it. A sleek filing cabinet tucked behind a stack of equipment cases. The top drawer opened smoothly, revealing rows of manila folders. "What are you doing here?" I spun around. Grace, Ben's mother, stood in the doorway, her elegant frame silhouetted against the fluorescent hallway lights. "Grace." My voice cracked. "I didn't expect—" Clearly. She stepped inside, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. "Benjamin asked me to pick up some old family photos, though I suspect that's not why you're here." I squared my shoulders, fighting the urge to apologize for something that wasn't wrong. "Did you know about this place?" "The storage unit?" "Of course, it's where he keeps his equipment." She paused, studying my face. "But that's not what you're really asking, is it?" I pulled out the bank statement I'd brought with me. $3,000 at Cartier. Know anything about that? Grace's perfectly maintained composure flickered. Ah. Ah? That's all you have to say?" She sighed, settling onto a nearby equipment case. "Violet, dear, sit down. I'd rather stand." "Very well." She smoothed her skirt, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. Benjamin has always been creative with the truth, even as a child. His father and I thought he'd grow out of it. This isn't about lying about eating his vegetables, Grace. He's living beyond his means. Yes, I'm aware. She reached for one of the folders I'd been examining. "These aren't just client files, you know. They're receipts, loan documents, credit card statements, all carefully hidden from you." My stomach lurched. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to be ashamed I didn't say something sooner." She met my gaze directly. "He's been borrowing money from me, claiming it's for equipment upgrades. I suspected otherwise, but—" She trailed off, her fingers tracing the folder's edge. "The bracelet? Probably for that young woman at the gallery. Emma, I believe? I've seen them together at several events." Grace's voice was gentle, but each word felt like a slap. "I'm so sorry, dear." I grabbed the edge of the filing cabinet to steady myself. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know. And because—" She hesitated. "Because I found something else. Something about Richard's estate." "Ben's father's money?" Grace nodded, her expression grim. "There are irregularities in the accounts, significant ones. I've been trying to trace them, but Benjamin's quite clever with his paperwork." My marketing brain kicked in, connecting dots. "The personal projects folders." "Exactly." She stood, moving to a box labeled Family Archives. "I've been gathering evidence, but I needed access to this unit. Thank you for inadvertently providing that." I watched her rifle through the box with practiced efficiency. "Why help me? He's your son." "And that's precisely why I must." She extracted a thick envelope. "Sometimes love means holding people accountable." My phone buzzed again. "Ben. Surprise lunch? I'm thinking that French place you love." Grace caught my expression. "He suspects something." "Apparently." "Be careful, Violet. Benjamin can be resourceful when cornered." She pressed the envelope into my hands. "These are copies of everything I've found so far. Use them wisely." I clutched the envelope, feeling its weight, the weight of decisions and consequences. "What will you do? What any mother must." She straightened her blazer, resuming her usual poise. "I'll protect my son from himself, even if he hates me for it." As Grace left, her heels echoing down the corridor, I looked at Ben's text again. The French restaurant, where he'd proposed, where we'd celebrated our engagement. He was trying to manipulate me with memories. I typed back, "Can't today. Busy with work." Then I photographed every document I could find, my hands steady despite the trembling in my chest. The truth was unfolding like a map of betrayal, and I intended to follow it to its end. The gallery walls seemed to close in as I watched Emma adjust a photograph. One of Ben's, of course. She wore the diamond bracelet that should have been mine, its stones catching the afternoon light. "He told me it was a gift from a grateful client," Emma said, not turning around. I should have known better. Lindsay had tracked her down through Ben's social media, where he'd tagged the gallery in dozens of posts. My best friend's detective work had revealed more than just Emma's workplace. It had exposed an entire parallel life Ben had built. How long? The question tasted bitter. 8 months. Emma finally faced me. He said he was separated, that his wife, you, understood it was over. She laughed, hollow and sharp. God, I'm such a cliché. We both are. I pulled out my phone, showing her the storage unit photos. But he's been playing a bigger game than either of us realized. Her eyes widened as she scrolled. These numbers, they're massive. His father's estate, he's been siphoning money for years, hiding it in fake photography projects, the private showings. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. That's how he's been laundering it, through art sales that never actually happen. The pieces clicked into place. Ben's insistence on handling all the financial paperwork for his exhibitions, the mysterious buyers who never appeared in person, the inflated prices for prints that somehow always sold. There's more, I said. Check the dates on those transfers. Emma's face paled. These match the deposits to my gallery's account. He's been using my workplace to clean his father's money. Does your boss know? Marcus? No, he... She stopped, realization dawning. He's been out sick for months. Ben suggested his replacement. My phone buzzed. Ben. Missing you? Dinner tonight? I have news. He's getting nervous, Emma murmured, reading over my shoulder. The walls are closing in. A customer wandered into the gallery and Emma straightened, professional mask sliding into place. Can I help you? Just browsing. The man's voice was familiar. I turned, catching sight of his reflection in a framed photograph, one of Ben's regular clients. My pulse quickened. We need to leave. Now. Emma must have sensed my urgency because she grabbed her bag without question. We slipped out the back entrance just as 2 more men entered the gallery. Those men, Emma said as we hurried down the alley. They're not really art buyers, are they? No. My hands shook as I texted Lindsay. They're the people Ben's been working with, the ones whose money he's been cleaning. Emma's heels clattered on the pavement as we rounded the corner. He used me, used my gallery, everything I've worked for. We can fix this. I grabbed her arm, pulling her into a coffee shop. But we need to be smart. Smart? She yanked off the bracelet, dropping it on the table between us. They know where I work, where I live. Then we'll use that. The plan formed as I spoke. The gallery's hosting that big charity event next week. Everyone who's anyone in the art world will be there. Including Ben's clients. Emma's eyes narrowed. And his mother, she's on the board. My phone lit up again. Ben, come home, please, we need to talk. Another message followed. I can explain everything. He's panicking, Emma observed. What did you do? I moved all our money this morning, every account we shared. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. And I sent copies of everything I found to his mother. Emma leaned back, really looking at me for the first time. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. I pushed the bracelet back toward her. Wear this to the charity event. One last time. Why? Because Ben needs to believe he's still in control, that his secrets are safe. I met her gaze steadily. Until they're not. She slipped the bracelet back on, its diamonds now looking less like love and more like armor. What's the plan? First, we need to talk to Grace. She's already gathering evidence, but she doesn't know about the gallery connection. And then? Then we give Ben exactly what he wants. A grand audience for his work. All his important clients in one room. I pulled out Grace's envelope, along with proof of where their money's really been going. Emma's smile turned predatory. When do we start? We already have. I showed her Ben's latest text. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Let me prove it. Perfect, Emma said. He still thinks he can talk his way out. Men like Ben always do. I gathered my things, standing. That's exactly what we're counting on. The boardroom felt like a pressure cooker as I tried to focus on my presentation. 3 days since meeting Emma, and my phone hadn't stopped buzzing with Ben's increasingly desperate messages. Each vibration felt like a small explosion against my hip. Violet? My boss, Sarah, raised an eyebrow. The Q4 projections? I blinked at the screen, where my marketing data blurred into meaningless shapes. Right. As you can see, the conference room door burst open. Ben stood there, disheveled and wild-eyed, clutching a manila envelope. Lindsay, sitting across from me, straightened in her chair. I'm sorry, our receptionist called from behind him. He just pushed past. We need to talk. Ben's voice cracked. Now? Sarah stood, every inch the CEO. This is a private meeting. It's fine. I kept my voice steady, though my hands trembled beneath the table. 5 minutes. In the hallway, Ben thrust the envelope at me. Care to explain these? Inside were printouts of emails between Grace and her lawyer, discussing the estate's missing funds. My stomach dropped. I hadn't expected him to discover our investigation so soon. Shouldn't I be asking you that question? I met his gaze, refusing to flinch. You turned my own mother against me. He stepped closer, his cologne suffocating. After everything I've done for you. Done for me? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him step back. Like spending our anniversary money on your girlfriend? His face shifted, that familiar mask of charm sliding into place. Baby, I can explain. Miss Thompson? A security guard approached, Lindsay right behind him. Everything okay here? Ben's mask cracked. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, I corrected, the words tasting like freedom. I filed the papers this morning. The color drained from his face. You what? And I've frozen the gallery's accounts, I added, watching his carefully constructed world crumble. Emma sends her regards. He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. You have no idea what you've done. The security guard moved forward, but Lindsay was faster. She wedged herself between us, her voice low and dangerous. Let her go, Ben. Now. He released me, running a hand through his hair. Those men at the gallery, they're not people you want to mess with. Neither am I. I straightened my blazer, channeling Sarah's boardroom confidence. The charity event is still on. Be there, or the police get everything. You're bluffing. Try me. He studied my face, searching for the woman who'd once believed his every lie. She wasn't there anymore. Fine. His smile turned cruel. But remember, you chose this. After he left, Lindsay touched my arm where he'd grabbed me. You okay? No. I leaned against the wall, letting out a shaky breath. But I will be. Miss Thompson? Sarah stood in the conference room doorway. A word? In her office, she didn't ask about Ben. Instead, she pulled up an email on her screen. Care to explain why I received this from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division? My carefully constructed plan tilted sideways. I can explain. They're investigating your husband's connection to a money laundering operation. She turned the screen toward me, one that apparently involves several of our company's clients. The room spun. Ben's photography clients. Of course, they'd have legitimate businesses as covers, including my own company's portfolio. I had no idea, I whispered. I believe you. Sarah's expression softened. But we need to handle this carefully. The company can't be implicated. What are you saying? I'm saying... She closed her laptop. That you have 2 weeks paid leave to deal with this, and when you return, there might be a VP position opening up. I stared at her. I don't understand. The FBI agent mentioned your cooperation was instrumental in breaking the case. She smiled. I appreciate employees who can handle complex situations, discreetly. My phone buzzed again. Grace. Benjamin's asking questions about the estate documents. Be careful. Another message followed from Emma. The men are back at the gallery. They're looking for the transaction records. Thank you, I told Sarah, standing. For everything. She nodded. Just make sure this ends cleanly. But as I gathered my things, Lindsay's worried face and the stream of urgent messages reminded me. Nothing about this would be clean. Ben had made sure of that. The charity event was 4 days away. I had until then to make sure we all survived his desperation. The charity event invitation sat on my desk like a loaded gun. 24 hours until everything exploded, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Grace's latest text glowed on my phone. Benjamin cleared out his safety deposit box. All the original estate documents are gone. The gallery's security cameras showed Ben entering through the service entrance, his clients following minutes later. Emma had positioned the hidden microphones exactly as the FBI instructed, but the footage remained silent. They're threatening the other artists now, Emma said through my earpiece, demanding their cooperation for tomorrow night's sales. I watched through the gallery's live feed as she arranged Ben's photographs, each one price tagged with ridiculous sums, the perfect vessels for cleaning dirty money. The FBI wants us to pull out, Lindsay whispered from beside me. They say it's too dangerous. No. I zoomed in on Ben's face as he gestured to his latest collection. We're too close. My phone lit up with an unknown number. Mrs. Carter? This is Detective Rivera. We need to discuss your husband's connection to the Mendoza family. My blood turned to ice. The Mendozas? I'd seen that name in Ben's files, always connected to his largest transactions. I'm handling it, I said. You don't handle the Mendozas, Mrs. Carter. I ended the call, turning to Lindsay. I need you to get Grace somewhere safe. Now. Already done? She pulled up a booking confirmation. She's at the lake house under a different name, but Violet... She hesitated. What about you? The gallery footage showed Ben approaching Emma, his hand lingering too long on her arm. Even through the grainy video, I could see her flinch. I'm right where I need to be. The elevator dinged, and Sarah strode into the observation room we'd set up in the building across from the gallery. The FBI's pulling their surveillance team. What? They can and they have. She handed me a file. The Mendozas have friends in high places. This just came from our board. They're voting to terminate your employment, trying to distance themselves. Let them. I turned back to the screens. Tomorrow night isn't about my job anymore. No, a familiar voice said from the doorway. It's about survival. Emma stood there, her gallery badge missing, her eyes wild. They know. Ben knows everything. Lindsay moved to block the exit. How did you get up here? Ben's waiting in the lobby. Emma's voice cracked. He says if Violet doesn't meet him now, he'll tell the Mendozas about Grace's evidence. Sarah reached for her phone, but I stopped her. Don't. Violet, you can't. Actually, I can. I grabbed my purse, feeling the weight of Grace's documents inside. Because Ben just made his first mistake. Which is? Lindsay demanded. He's scared. I smiled, though it felt more like baring teeth. And scared men make stupid decisions. The elevator ride down felt eternal. Ben waited exactly where Emma said he would, looking immaculate in his photographer's blacks. A power move, reminding me of the man I fell in love with. Hello, darling. His smile was razor sharp. Ready to be reasonable? Define reasonable. Call off tomorrow night. Give me the documents. Walk away. He stepped closer. I'll even let you keep your job. I laughed. You really don't know me at all, do you? His expression darkened. The Mendozas? Will be very interested in those transfer records you kept. I met his gaze steadily. The ones showing how much you've been skimming from their payments? The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showing him the transaction logs. 20% off every laundered payment. That's millions, Ben. They're millions. Violet. The charity event stays. I turned toward the elevator. Oh, and Ben, Emma's wearing a wire. Has been all day. Say hi to your friends for me. The doors closed on his stricken face. In the reflection, I watched my hands finally stop shaking. Upstairs, Lindsay grabbed me. Are you insane? Now he'll run straight to the Mendozas. Sarah finished, understanding dawning, trying to explain before they see tomorrow's evidence. And lead the FBI right to them. I sank into a chair, adrenaline fading. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone enough rope. Through the gallery footage, we watched Ben rush out into the night, phone pressed to his ear. The trap was set. Now we just had to survive until tomorrow. The gallery hummed with Seattle's elite, their champagne glasses catching the light like warning signals. I adjusted my earpiece, scanning the crowd for Ben's clients. They weren't hard to spot. Expensive suits that tried too hard, eyes that never settled in one place. FBI's in position, Lindsay murmured through the comm, but they're staying outside until they see Mendoza himself. I touched the USB drive hanging from my neck, disguised as an artsy pendant. Everything we had on Ben's money laundering operation, ready to display on the gallery's screens at my signal. He's here. Emma's voice crackled in my ear. West entrance, and he's not alone. Ben strode in like he owned the place, Grace on his arm like a shield. My stomach dropped. She was supposed to be safe at the lake house. Slight change of plans, darling. Ben's smile was triumphant as they approached. Mother insisted on attending. Grace's eyes met mine, and I saw the bruising partially hidden by her makeup. My hands clenched into fists. The Mendozas send their regards. Ben continued softly. They're very interested in meeting the woman who's been causing so much trouble. What did you do to her? Nothing permanent yet. He gestured to the men flanking them. Although that could change if you don't give me the drive. The gallery lights dimmed, spotlighting Ben's photographs. Right on schedule. Except nothing else about this was going according to plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the gallery owner announced, please direct your attention to tonight's featured collection. Ben's grip on Grace's arm tightened. Time's running out, Vi. The drive or my associates take Mother somewhere more private to discuss family loyalty. Violet, don't, Grace whispered. The evidence means nothing if you're dead. I reached for the necklace. Don't do it, Lindsay hissed in my ear. The FBI needs those files. But they weren't watching Grace's face contort in pain as Ben's fingers dug deeper. I unclasped the necklace. Let her go first. That's not how this works. Ben nodded to one of his men, who moved toward the gallery's main computer. We'll verify the data then. A crash from the entrance made everyone turn. Emma stood amid shattered champagne glasses, her designer dress soaked. Oh God, I'm so sorry, she slurred, stumbling forward. I'm just so emotional about the art. The distraction lasted seconds, but it was enough. I lunged forward, driving my knee into Ben's side. Grace wrenched free as Lindsay's voice shouted, "Now!" in my ear. The gallery plunged into darkness. Screams erupted as the emergency lights kicked in. I scrambled for the drive I'd dropped, but a boot stepped on my hand. Looking up, I met the cold eyes of Marcus Mendoza himself. Miss Thompson, he said quietly. My associate tells me you've been quite troublesome. Ben appeared beside him, blood trickling from his lip where I'd struck him. I tried to warn you, Vi. The drive, Mendoza continued. And perhaps we discuss this civilly. It's gone, I gasped as his boot pressed harder. What? Check your pocket. I managed through the pain. Mendoza's free hand patted his jacket, finding the drive Emma had slipped there during her drunken performance. His expression darkened as realization dawned. The champagne delivery guy. Ben breathed. He was FBI. And you led them right to him. I smiled through bloody teeth. The gallery erupted in shouts as FBI agents swarmed in, but Mendoza moved faster, hauling me up by my hair. If I'm going down, he pressed something cold against my ribs. You're coming with me. Ben's face went pale. Marcus, wait. The gun fired. Time slowed. I expected pain, but instead watched Ben crumple, red blooming across his chest where he'd jumped between us. No. Grace's scream cut through the chaos. Mendoza shoved me aside as agents converged. I crawled to Ben, his blood staining my hands. Why? I demanded. He coughed, a wet sound. Couldn't let him. His eyes fixed on something behind me. Mom, I'm sorry. Grace collapsed beside us as Ben's breathing stuttered. FBI, freeze. But it was too late. In saving my life, Ben had finally done something honest, and I had no idea how to feel about that. Through the gallery windows, red and blue lights painted the night like brushstrokes on canvas, while inside a family shattered beyond repair. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly, its fluorescent lights making everything feel surreal. Ben was in surgery, fighting for his life, while Grace sat beside me, both of us still wearing clothes stained with his blood. Mrs. Carter? Detective Rivera approached, his badge catching the harsh light. We need to discuss what happened at the gallery. Not now, Grace snapped, but I touched her arm. Actually, yes, now. I stood, my legs shaky. Because there's something you need to see. I pulled out my phone, bringing up the video I'd discovered in Ben's storage unit just hours before the shooting. Richard Carter, Ben's father, speaking directly to the camera. Is that? Grace's breath caught. Your husband's last confession. I pressed play. Richard's tired face filled the screen. If you're watching this, then Ben has finally gone too far. The money laundering, the fake art sales, it wasn't enough for him. He wanted control of everything. A pause. Including my death. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. No. The poison was subtle, Richard continued. Small doses over months. I'm recording this from my hospital bed, where the doctors can't explain my declining health. But I can. His eyes hardened. My son is killing me for my estate. Detective Rivera leaned closer. When was this recorded? 2 days before Richard's death, I said. Ben kept it as insurance against the Mendozas, proof he could be ruthless enough for their operation. That's why he jumped in front of the bullet. Grace whispered. He knew this would come out anyway. The detective's radio crackled. Sir, Mendoza's talking. Says Carter was skimming money for months, planning to disappear with evidence against the whole organization. The storage unit, I realized. He wasn't just hiding his father's murder, he was gathering leverage. Mrs. Carter? A nurse appeared. Your son's asking for you. Grace stood, then hesitated. Violet, go, I said. He's still your son. In Ben's room, machines beeped steadily. He looked small against the white sheets, nothing like the man who'd manipulated so many lives. Mom, he croaked, then saw me. Vi, you came. Not for you. I moved closer. For answers. His laugh turned into a cough. Always the investigator. That's why I loved you. You never loved anyone. Grace cut in, her voice sharp. Not even your father. Ben's monitor spiked. He was weak. Would have lost everything to those vultures. So you killed him, I said. Like you planned to kill your mother when she discovered the truth. I protected us. He tried to sit up, wincing. Everything I did was for you. Grace's quiet voice cut through his protests. It was always for you. Detective Rivera cleared his throat from the doorway. Benjamin Carter, you're under arrest for the murder of Richard Carter, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and attempted murder of Grace Carter. You can't prove anything, Ben snarled. I held up my phone. Your father already did, and the Mendozas are talking. The fight drained from him suddenly, leaving only the scared boy Grace had raised. Mom, please. But Grace was already walking away, her spine straight despite everything crumbling around her. You know what's funny? I leaned close to Ben's ear. I actually hoped you'd die a hero. One last manipulation, making me feel guilty for exposing you. I straightened up. But you couldn't even do that right. Vi, wait. His hand caught my wrist. The estate. There's something you don't know. Save it for your testimony. I pulled free. You've got nothing left to bargain with. As I walked out, Ben's monitors screamed behind me. Doctors rushed past, but I didn't turn around. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Board meeting tomorrow. VP position is yours if you want it. Grace waited by the elevator, looking decades older. I should have seen it. We both should have. What happens now? The elevator doors opened, and I thought about revenge, justice, and the thin line between them. Now we rebuild. Separately, she nodded, understanding. As we descended, Ben's final manipulation faded with each floor, leaving only the truth. Sometimes winning means walking away. Outside, dawn painted Seattle's skyline in shades of possibility, while behind us, a man who thought he could control everything lost his last grip on power. The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving me alone with the echo of the judge's verdict. 20 years for Richard Carter's murder, plus additional charges for money laundering and conspiracy. Ben hadn't looked at me once during the sentencing. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Galleries reopening next week. Clean slate. I smiled, remembering how she'd testified, her voice steady as she detailed Ben's manipulation of the art market. She'd rebuilt the gallery's reputation from scratch, turning it into something honest. Miss Thompson? I turned to find Detective Rivera approaching, holding a familiar envelope. The evidence can be returned now, he said, though there's something interesting you should see. Inside were Richard Carter's original financial documents, but tucked between them was a handwritten letter I'd never seen before. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Violet, if you're reading this, you've discovered the truth about Ben. But there's one last secret. I chose you. When Ben first brought you home, I recognized something in you. The same determination my late wife had. I knew you'd eventually see through his facade. This evidence isn't just proof of his crimes. It's my apology for not stopping him sooner. Richard. He knew, I whispered. People surprise us. Rivera pocketed his notebook. Sometimes in good ways. Outside the courthouse, Grace waited by her car. She'd aged years in the months since Ben's arrest, but there was a new strength in her posture. I'm selling the house, she said without preamble. Starting fresh? Where will you go? There's a literacy program in Guatemala looking for volunteers. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Richard always wanted to teach. I handed her the letter. As she read, tears spilled onto the paper. He knew. She echoed my earlier words. All this time. Grace. I hesitated. About the estate. Keep it. She pressed the letter back into my hands. Richard left it to you for a reason. Use it better than we did. Lindsay appeared at my elbow, tablet in hand. Board meeting in an hour. You ready? I nodded, but Grace caught my arm. Violet? Thank you. Not for exposing Ben, but for showing me how to be strong again. We showed each other, I corrected. As Grace drove away, Lindsay pulled up our presentation. The company's new transparency initiative. Sarah thinks it'll revolutionize corporate accountability. Starting with our own clients, I added, thinking of all the other Ben Carters out there, hiding behind legitimate businesses. My office, the VP's office, overlooked the Seattle skyline. On my desk sat a single photograph. Not of Ben, but of the gallery on opening night, Emma and Grace flanking me as we cut the ribbon. 3 women who'd turned betrayal into strength. One more thing, Lindsay said, pulling out a familiar USB drive. Ben wanted you to have this. Said something about you deserving the whole truth. I stared at it, remembering all the pain it had caused, and all the justice it had brought. Destroy it, I decided. Some truths we have to find for ourselves. Lindsay smiled, snapping the drive in half. Speaking of truth, dinner tonight? There's this new detective who keeps asking about you. Not ready, I said, but I was smiling too. My phone lit up with a final text from Ben's prison number. You won. Happy? I thought about happiness, about revenge and justice and the blurry line between them, about Richard's letter and Grace's strength and Emma's resilience, about all the ways betrayal can shape us into something stronger. I deleted the message without responding. The Seattle rain painted rivers on my office window, washing the city clean. Below, people hurried through their lives, carrying their own secrets and truths. Some would unravel, like mine had. Others would stay buried. But I had learned to recognize the signs, to trust the quiet voice that says something isn't right. And maybe that was the real victory. Not the revenge or the justice, but the wisdom to know the difference. I opened my laptop, ready to begin the day's work. There were other stories to uncover, other truths to protect. And this time I was ready. Not happy exactly, but free.